Eritrea is more than a name on the map. It is a land of hidden kingdoms, untold stories, and leaders whose courage shaped centuries of resistance. From the forgotten rulers of Medribari to the rebels who carried rifles in the mountains, Eritrea's past holds secrets rarely told. In this journey, we uncover the stories, the struggles, and the voices that kept Eritrea alive through empires, wars, and independence. Eritrea's story goes back thousands of years, when Eritrea's history began. The area around modern Eritrea, the kingdom of Medribari, 12th century to 18th century, in the Eritrean highlands around the present-day city of Asmara, a kingdom grew that the people called Medribari, land of the sea. Its rulers were known as the Bar Negash, the rulers of the sea. The Bar Negash ruled from mountain strongholds like Debarwa. They defended their people against raids from the lowlands and against foreign encroachment from the Red Sea coast. For centuries, they held the balance, sometimes fiercely independent, sometimes dealing with powerful neighbors, but always keeping the Eritrean highlands alive with their own traditions. Among them, Bar Negash Yeshak became one of the most remembered names, a ruler who struggled to keep his authority in the 1600s to the 1700s. Others bore the same proud title, though their names are less preserved in records. Still, for nearly 600 years, the Bar Negash symbolized the endurance of Eritrean rule in the highlands. Foreign shadows on the coast, 15th to 18th centuries, the highlands stayed under Medribari, but the coast became a battleground for empires. In 1557, the Ottoman Turks seized Massawa. They ruled the port through appointed governors, while Eritrean life inland went on under the Bar Negash. Later, in the 1800s, Egyptian governors under Ottoman suzerainty extended control to parts of the coast. Yet the Ottomans and Egyptians never broke into the highlands fully. Thus, two Eritreas coexisted, a coastal strip under foreign officials and a proud inland society guarded by the Bar Negash. Italian colonization, 1880s to 1941, change came when Europeans arrived. In 1869, Italy bought land around the tiny port of Asab. From there, they expanded northwards, seizing Massawa in 1885. By 1890, Italy declared the new colony Eritrea. From then on, the land was ruled not by Eritreans, but by Italian governors appointed from Rome. Railways, roads, and towns. They planned Asmara as a modern city. But Eritreans themselves were given no power. In 1936, Mussolini merged Eritrea with Ethiopia and Italian Somaliland to create the grand project of Italian East Africa. Eritreans were forced into Italian wars, even sent to fight as far as Libya. British military administration, 1941 to 1952. Italy's empire collapsed in World War II. In 1941, British soldiers marched into Asmara. For the next 11 years, Eritrea was ruled by a British military administration. The British did not restore Eritrean kings, but they allowed Eritreans to form parties, newspapers, and political organizations. For the first time in modern history, Eritrean voices rose to demand self-determination. Federation with Ethiopia and the loss of autonomy, 1952 to 1962. In 1952, the United Nations decided Eritrea would not be fully independent. Instead, it became a federated state with Ethiopia. Eritrea had its own parliament, its own flag, and its own local government. The first leader of this federation was Tedla Bairu, appointed as chief executive of Eritrea. He was followed by other local executives, but the promise of autonomy quickly faded. In 1962, Emperor Haile Selassie dissolved the federation and annexed Eritrea as a province. Self-rule was gone, and Eritrean anger began to boil. The Eritrean War of Independence, 1961 to 1991. On September 1st, 1961, a former soldier named Hamid Idris Awade fired the first shots against Ethiopian troops in the western lowlands. This act marked the birth of the Eritrean armed struggle. At first, fighters organized under the Eritrean Liberation Front, ELF, led by men like Ahmed Mohamed Nasser. But divisions led to the rise of another movement, the Eritrean People's Liberation Front, EPLF. The EPLF became the dominant force, with leaders such as Ramadan Mohamed Noor. For 30 years, Eritrean fighters battled in mountains, deserts, and trenches. They endured famine, bombardments, and exile. Yet the EPLF grew stronger, disciplined, and united. By 1991, their fighters marched into Asmara victorious. Eritrea was free at last. Independence, 1993, today. In 1993, Eritreans voted in a UN-supervised referendum. The result was overwhelming. Over 99% voted for independence. On May 24, 1993, Eritrea officially became a sovereign nation. Isaias Afwerki, leader of the EPLF, became the first president of Eritrea. The EPLF transformed into the People's Front for Democracy and Justice, the sole legal political party. Since then, Eritrea has remained under his rule. In the years after independence, other prominent leaders emerged in government and the military, such as Sebhat Ephraim and Mesfin Hagos in the Ministry of Defense, and figures like Petros Solomon and Haile Volda-Tensai. Yet power has remained tightly in the hands of the presidency. Eritrea's legacy, from the days of the Bear Nagash of Medri Bari, through Ottoman governors, Italian colonizers, British administrators, and the long, bitter war of independence, Eritrea's story is one of resilience. Its leaders, kings, chiefs, rebels, and presidents shaped a history marked by resistance, survival, and the unbroken identity of a people who call themselves Eritrean. Even today, many Ethiopians believe Eritrea is part of their country. They ask for the sea, as if Eritrea has no right to stand on its own. But here is the truth. Eritrea is not Ethiopia. Eritrea is a nation with its own deep roots, its own kings and fighters, and a kingdom that held power long before modern borders were drawn. One of the secrets the world rarely tells is that the Bahar Nagash rulers of Medri Bari governed the highlands for centuries. They were Eritrean rulers, not Ethiopian ones, and they protected their land from Ottomans and Egyptians who fought only for the coast. Another hidden truth is that when Italy colonized Eritrea in 1890, the world officially recognized Eritrea as a separate colony. The borders drawn then were not erased, they were kept and respected because of international history and law. Later, when Britain took over after World War II, the same colonial borders of Eritrea remained. And when the United Nations debated Eritrea's future, it was again those same international boundaries that defined Eritrea as a land apart from Ethiopia. This is why Eritrea exists today with its own geography, not by accident, but because the world itself once drew the line and admitted Eritrea is a distinct country. And then came the greatest proof. For 30 years of war, Eritrean men and women fought in mountains and deserts against impossible odds until they raised their own flag. The world thought Eritrea would vanish, but instead it rose stronger, proving it was a nation with a history too powerful to erase. So when you hear about today's frictions between Ethiopia and Eritrea, remember this story. Eritrea is not a small land to be claimed. It is a country with a secret strength, a kingdom's memory, and a geography defined by international history itself. Thank you so much for watching this journey through the history of Eritrea